Lena woke up before sunrise. The first light of morning was still soft, creeping through the thin curtains of her small room. She rubbed her eyes, her head still heavy from sleep, and stared at her phone. It was 5:10 a.m. Her aunt's message from last night blinked on the screen again. "Sweetheart, I don't think I can go tomorrow. My fever is back. Can you please cover my shift at the hotel?" Lena had said yes without thinking much. Her aunt had taken care of her since her parents passed away years ago, and she couldn't refuse a favor now. Still, she felt nervous. She had never worked as a cleaner before, especially not in a 5-star hotel. She got out of bed and quietly dressed in her aunt's spare uniform, a simple navy blue dress and white apron. It was a bit too big for her, but it would do. She tied her hair into a bun, looked at herself in the mirror, and whispered, "You can do this, Lena." Outside, the city was just waking up. The air was cool and smelled of rain from the night before. She took the early bus that went straight to the Grand Royal Hotel, one of the fanciest places in town. The ride was quiet, only a few other people sitting with sleepy faces, clutching coffee cups or staring out the window. Lena kept thinking about the day ahead. Her aunt had always told her stories about the guests, how some were kind and left generous tips, while others treated her like she was invisible. Lena hoped she wouldn't meet the rude ones today. When the bus finally stopped near the hotel, she stepped off and looked up. The Grand Royal stood tall and shining, its glass doors reflecting the rising sun. It looked more like a palace than a hotel. For a moment, she hesitated. She didn't feel like she belonged there, but she took a deep breath and walked in through the staff entrance. Inside, the back halls were quiet, the air filled with the faint scent of cleaning supplies and fresh linen. A few other staff members were already there, chatting softly while preparing their carts. A middle-aged woman with a gentle face noticed Lena and smiled. "You must be Rose's niece," she said warmly. "Yes, ma'am. My aunt isn't feeling well, so I came to help today," Lena replied politely. "Ah, how sweet of you. I'm Maria, the floor supervisor. Don't worry, I'll show you what to do. It's not hard, just takes a bit of patience." Maria handed her a cart filled with towels, sheets, sprays, and brushes. Then she led her to the elevators and up to the 10th floor. The carpet was thick and soft under her shoes, and the hallways smelled of perfume and polished wood. Lena followed closely, trying to remember everything Maria said. Replace the towels. Make the bed tight. Don't leave watermarks on the mirrors. And always knock twice before entering a room. They started with the first room of the day. Maria showed her how to clean efficiently, first collecting used towels, then changing sheets, dusting surfaces, and vacuuming. Lena watched carefully, then tried it herself. It was tiring, but there was something peaceful about it too. The steady rhythm of cleaning. The soft hum of the vacuum, the quietness of the empty rooms. After 2 hours, her back began to ache, but she didn't complain. She reminded herself it was only for one day. At around 10, Maria told her to take a short break. "Go to the garden behind the lobby. There's a bench under the trees. It's quiet there," she said. Lena nodded, thanking her, and pushed her cart aside. She removed her apron because it was stained from cleaning supplies and wanted to let her skin breathe a little. Underneath, she wore a plain white blouse and a dark skirt, simple clothes that made her look like any guest enjoying a morning walk. She stepped out into the garden, and the air instantly felt fresher. Birds chirped in the trees, and the gentle splash of the fountain filled the silence. She sat down on the wooden bench, leaned back, and sighed. Her hands were sore, but she smiled to herself. Maybe this wasn't so bad. Just as she closed her eyes for a moment, a man's voice broke the silence. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Startled, she looked up. Standing before her was a tall man in a gray suit holding a coffee cup. He had kind eyes and a tired smile, like someone who had been working nonstop. "Oh, no, it's not," Lena said quickly, moving her bag aside. "Thank you," he said, and sat down next to her, glancing at the garden around them. "Beautiful place, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," Lena replied softly. "I come here every time I visit this hotel," he continued. "Helps me clear my mind before meetings. Are you here for the conference too?" Lena froze for a moment, unsure what to say. He must think she was a guest. She didn't want to lie, but she also didn't want to embarrass herself. "I'm just here for the day," she said, smiling faintly. He nodded. "Lucky you. I wish I could take a day off. Business trips sound glamorous, but they're mostly just stress in hotel rooms." Lena chuckled softly. "I can imagine. For a few minutes they sat quietly, sipping coffee and watching the hotel staff walk by. Lena felt strangely comfortable talking to him, even though she didn't know his name. There was something genuine about him, something that made her forget where she was. He turned to her suddenly. "I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Ethan." "Lena," she said politely. "Nice to meet you, Lena," he said with a warm smile. "You have this calm energy. Most people I meet here are always rushing somewhere." She laughed. "Maybe I'm just tired," he smiled. "That makes two of us." They talked about little things, the weather, the city, their favorite foods. Ethan told her about his travels and how lonely hotels could feel despite their beauty. Lena listened, fascinated. She rarely got to meet people who lived such different lives. As he spoke, she noticed how he treated her, not as a cleaner or a stranger, but as an equal. It was refreshing. For once, she didn't feel invisible. After a while, Ethan glanced at his watch. "I have a meeting in 15 minutes. I should probably head back inside." Lena nodded. "Of course." "It was really nice talking to you, Lena. Maybe I'll see you around." "Maybe," she said softly, trying not to smile too much. He stood, gave her a polite nod, and walked back toward the lobby. Lena watched him go, feeling an odd mix of warmth and nervousness. She shook her head quickly. "Don't be silly," she told herself. "He thinks you're a guest. If he knew the truth, he probably wouldn't have sat with you." Still, his kindness stayed with her as she went back inside. She put her apron on again and returned to her cart where Maria was waiting. "Break over?" Maria asked with a grin. "Yes," Lena said, trying to hide the blush on her cheeks. The rest of the day passed in a blur of cleaning, scrubbing, and changing bed sheets. By late afternoon, Lena's body was exhausted, but every time she thought about that short conversation in the garden, she found herself smiling. She didn't know it yet, but that small encounter, the simple kindness of a stranger, was about to lead her into something she could never have imagined. The next morning, Lena woke up with a sore back and stiff arms. Every muscle in her body felt heavy from the work the day before. But when she remembered the short moment she had spent in the hotel garden, talking to the man named Ethan, a small smile tugged at her lips. She told herself not to think too much about it. It was just a simple conversation. He probably forgot about it the moment he left. Still, it felt nice to remember that someone had spoken to her kindly, without judgment or distance. Her aunt was still not well, coughing and weak, so Lena decided to cover her shift again. "Only until you're better," she said, helping her aunt drink some warm tea. Her aunt smiled weakly. "You're an angel, my dear. The manager told me you did a good job yesterday. They said you're very polite." Lena felt a bit of pride at that. "It wasn't too hard," she said, though her aching arms disagreed. She put on the same uniform and left early, just as the sun began to rise. The bus ride was quieter this time. She looked out the window, her thoughts drifting between her aunt's recovery and the faces she'd seen at the hotel. When she arrived at the Grand Royal, she greeted Maria, the supervisor, and got her cleaning cart ready. "Back again, Lena," Maria said with a teasing smile. "You sure you don't want to work here full-time?" Lena laughed softly. "I'm just helping my aunt." "Well, you're doing great. Today you'll be on the 12th floor. The guests up there are mostly here for business, so it should be quiet." Lena nodded and pushed her cart toward the elevator. As the doors opened to the 12th floor, she took a deep breath. The hallway was silent except for the hum of air conditioning. She started with the first room and worked carefully, dusting, replacing towels, polishing mirrors until they sparkled. Hours passed quickly. She was focused, lost in her work, when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned around and froze. Ethan was standing there, holding a laptop bag, looking just as surprised as she felt. "Lena," he said, blinking. "What are you doing here?" Her face turned pale. She didn't know what to say. She wanted to hide, to disappear into the freshly made bed. "Oh, she stammered. "I'm just helping my aunt. She works here." Ethan looked confused for a second, then his expression softened. "You're a cleaner?" She nodded slowly, her cheeks burning. "Just for a few days. My aunt's sick." There was a moment of silence. Lena couldn't meet his eyes. She felt foolish for ever thinking he might have seen her as someone more than just another guest. "I see," he finally said, his tone quiet. You don't have to look so nervous, Lena. It's perfectly fine. She looked up, surprised. He was smiling, not mockingly, but kindly. You don't have to be embarrassed, he continued. I should have asked yesterday. I just assumed you were staying here. Lena forced a small smile. It's okay. I didn't correct you. I guess I let you believe it. Ethan chuckled softly. Well, I'm glad I ran into you again, even if by accident. Her shoulders relaxed a little. I didn't expect to see you again. Neither did I, he said. But I'm glad I did. He leaned lightly against the wall, still watching her. You know, it doesn't matter where someone works or what they wear. You looked more confident yesterday than half the people in that conference. Lena wasn't sure what to say to that. Compliments were not something she received often. Thank you, she said finally, her voice small. Anyway, Ethan said, checking his watch. I should probably get to my next meeting, but maybe I can buy you a coffee later. On your break if you have one. Lena hesitated. It didn't seem right. He was a guest and she was staff. What if someone saw them? I don't know, she said gently. I might not get another break today. He nodded, not offended. That's okay. Maybe another time then. She smiled politely and he gave her a small wave before heading down the hall. As soon as he turned the corner, she let out a long sigh and sat down on the edge of the bed she'd just made. Her heart was racing. For the rest of the day, she couldn't stop thinking about their encounter. She tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting. The way he'd smiled, the softness in his tone. It wasn't pity, she realized. It was respect. That evening, as she clocked out, Maria walked beside her. You look distracted, Lena, she teased. Everything all right? Lena smiled faintly. Just tired, I guess. Maria patted her shoulder. You're doing great, dear. The manager even said one of the guests complimented how clean their room was today. Really? Yes, room 1213, Lena froze. That was the same floor Ethan was on. She didn't say anything, just smiled shyly and thanked her supervisor before heading out. The next morning, she woke up earlier than usual, unsure why she felt excited. Her aunt's fever had gone down, but she insisted Lena work one more day to help. You seem to like it there, her aunt said, giving her a knowing look. It's peaceful, Lena replied quickly, pretending not to blush. When she arrived at the hotel, she noticed a small paper cup waiting on her cleaning cart. There was a note taped to it, for your morning energy, from a grateful guest. Her heart skipped. It was coffee, still warm. She looked around, half expecting him to appear, but the hallway was empty. She smiled to herself and took a sip. It was strong but sweet. Just right. Later that day, as she was cleaning another room, someone knocked on the open door. She turned, and there he was again, holding another coffee. I see you found the first one, Ethan said with a grin. You didn't have to do that, she said softly, though her smile betrayed her. I wanted to, he replied. It's the least I can do for the person keeping my room spotless. Lena laughed lightly. You're too kind. He leaned against the doorframe. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you like working here? She paused. I don't know. It's honest work, but it's not really what I want to do. What do you want? He asked, his voice curious, not demanding. She hesitated before answering. I studied business administration. I've been trying to find a job, but it's hard. Most places want experience I don't have. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. I know that feeling. Everyone starts somewhere. Sometimes the job we least expect teaches us the most. Lena looked down, smiling faintly. Maybe you're right. For a moment, they just stood there, the hum of the air conditioner filling the silence. Then Ethan said quietly, You know, if you ever want to practice interview skills or need help with a resume, I could take a look. I run a small company. I know what employers usually look for. Her eyes widened. Really? You do that? Of course, he said simply. You helped your aunt without hesitation. That says a lot about your character. She didn't know how to respond. Gratitude filled her chest, but also confusion. Why was he being so kind to her? Thank you, she said finally. That means a lot, he smiled. Then it's a promise. Maybe after your shift we can meet in the lounge? Just for a few minutes. I can show you how to structure your resume. Lena hesitated again, worried someone might see them. But deep down she wanted to go. Okay, she said quietly, after my shift. By the time evening came, Lena's nerves were all over the place. She finished her last room, changed out of her apron, and carefully fixed her hair. She didn't wear makeup, but she looked neat. When she entered the hotel lounge, Ethan was already sitting at a corner table with his laptop open. He smiled when he saw her. "You made it," he said warmly. "I did," she replied, sitting down across from him. He spent the next half hour showing her how to improve her resume, explaining things in simple ways that made her feel capable. He didn't talk down to her or treat her like someone beneath him. At one point, she said quietly, "No one's ever done something like this for me before." He looked at her gently. "Everyone deserves a chance, Lena. You remind me of my mother. She worked as a cleaner when I was a kid. She taught me that dignity isn't about what job you do, it's about how you do it." Her throat tightened at his words. She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. After they finished, Ethan closed his laptop. "You've got potential, Lena. Don't give up on yourself." "Thank you," she said, smiling softly. As they stood to leave, one of the senior hotel staff passed by and gave Lena a puzzled look. Her stomach dropped. She quickly stepped back, pretending to wipe the table, but the man's curious eyes lingered for a moment before he walked off. Ethan noticed her discomfort. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," she said quickly. "It's just people talk. I don't want anyone thinking I'm doing something I shouldn't." He nodded in understanding. "I get it. I'll be careful." She appreciated that. He respected her boundaries. When she left that night, she felt lighter somehow. For the first time in a long while, she believed that maybe her life could change. Not because of luck or romance, but because someone had reminded her of her worth. But fate wasn't finished with her yet. The next day, something unexpected happened. Something that would test everything she thought she knew about kindness, judgment, and herself. Lena woke up that morning feeling a strange mix of excitement and worry. The last few days had been so different from her usual life that she almost didn't know what to do with all the new feelings inside her. She wasn't sure what to think about Ethan anymore. He was kind, respectful, and never once made her feel small. But he was still a guest, someone who lived in a completely different world from hers. Her aunt was feeling better and had decided to go back to work that day, but Lena wanted to accompany her. "I'll help you with the heavier rooms," she said, tying her apron. Her aunt smiled, her eyes soft with affection. "You've done more than enough already. You can rest today," but Lena shook her head. "I don't mind. I like helping." When they arrived at the hotel, the morning rush had already started. Guests walked through the lobby with suitcases and coffee cups while staff hurried around, checking rooms and greeting visitors. Lena and her aunt took the service elevator to the 10th floor, the one she had cleaned on her first day. As the elevator doors opened, Lena saw a few familiar faces among the staff. Maria waved at her from down the hall. "Morning, Lena. Good to see you again." "Morning," Lena called back with a smile. She began her work quietly, cleaning mirrors and changing linens while her aunt tidied the bathroom. It was almost peaceful until she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Working hard as always, I see." Lena turned, startled but smiling. "Ethan," she said softly. He stood there holding a file folder, dressed neatly as always. "I didn't expect to see you today. I thought your aunt was back." "She is," Lena said, glancing toward the bathroom. "I just came to help," he nodded. "That's kind of you. How's she feeling?" "Better, thankfully." "That's good to hear." He smiled, but then lowered his voice. "Listen, I didn't get to thank you properly for meeting me the other day. You've got a sharp mind, Lena. I really meant what I said about your potential." Her face grew warm. "Thank you. That means a lot to me." Before they could talk further, her aunt stepped out of the bathroom holding a towel. She looked from Lena to Ethan, clearly curious. "Oh, this must be one of the guests," she said politely. "Yes, ma'am," Ethan replied, giving a small bow. "I was just telling your niece she does an excellent job." Her aunt's smile widened. "That's very kind of you, sir. She's always been a hard-working girl." Ethan excused himself soon after, saying he had to leave for a meeting, but his eyes lingered on Lena for a second longer than necessary before he walked away. Once he was gone, her aunt turned to her with a grin. "That young man seems very nice. Do you know him?" Lena tried not to look flustered. "He's just someone I met by accident. We talked a little." Her aunt nodded slowly. He seems respectful. But be careful, dear. The world can be tricky when hearts get involved." Lena nodded silently. She knew her aunt meant well, but it wasn't like that. At least she didn't think it was. Later that afternoon, as she was cleaning one of the suites, the hotel manager suddenly entered the room. His expression was serious. "Lena," he said, "can I speak with you for a moment?" Her heart skipped. Of course, he motioned her into the hallway. "I received a complaint earlier. Someone said a staff member was sitting with a guest in the lounge during working hours yesterday evening. Do you know anything about that?" Lena froze. Her stomach twisted. She knew exactly what he was talking about. Yes, she admitted quietly. "That was me, but it wasn't during my shift. I had already clocked out," the manager sighed. "Even so, you must be careful. It gives the wrong impression when staff socialize with guests. Some people might misunderstand your intentions." "I understand," she said softly, her throat tight. He nodded. "I'm not angry, just reminding you of the rules. You're a good worker. Don't risk that reputation." Lena thanked him and returned to her duties, but her mind wouldn't stop spinning. She felt embarrassed, not because she had done anything wrong, but because people were judging her without knowing the truth. That evening, as she was finishing her shift, Ethan appeared near the staff hallway. He looked concerned.
"Hey, I heard about what happened."
"Are you all right?" She forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just a misunderstanding. I'm sorry, Lena. I didn't think anyone would notice or care that we were talking. It's not your fault," she said softly. "But I think it's better if we don't meet like that again. I don't want anyone getting the wrong idea." Ethan hesitated. "I understand. Still, I don't want to make things harder for you." She appreciated that. He wasn't pushing, just listening. That made it harder to distance herself. "Thank you," she said. "I'll be okay." He nodded, gave her a small smile, and walked away, but she could tell he wasn't happy about it. The next day, Lena went to work feeling uneasy. She tried to stay focused and avoid unnecessary attention. But just before lunchtime, she heard a quiet knock at the service door near the hallway. When she opened it, she saw Ethan standing there with a paper bag in his hand. "I come bearing peace offerings," he said lightly, holding up the bag. "Lunch for two." Lena couldn't help but laugh softly. "You're impossible." "I know," he said. "But I figured you might not get much time to eat." She looked around, nervous. "Someone might see you." "I'll be quick," he promised. She hesitated, but finally took the bag. "Thank you," he smiled. "All right, I'll leave before you get into trouble again." As he turned to go, she called after him softly. "Wait," he looked back. "You didn't have to do that, but it means a lot." His smile deepened. Then it was worth it. When she opened the bag later, she found a sandwich and a small note tucked inside. It said, "You for the hardest worker I know. Don't forget to take care of yourself." She folded the note carefully and slipped it into her pocket. For the next few days, they didn't see much of each other. Ethan was busy with meetings, and Lena had extra rooms to handle since one of the staff members was on leave. Still, she thought about him often. One evening, as she was finishing her last room, she noticed something on the nightstand, a small envelope with her name written on it. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a card from the hotel restaurant. "Lena, thank you for your hard work and kindness. If you're free tomorrow evening, meet me in the garden around 6. Her heart fluttered. She read the note twice, then hid it quickly in her bag before anyone could see. The next day, she debated whether she should go or not. Her aunt's warning echoed in her mind, and so did the manager's words. But curiosity and something softer, hope maybe, pushed her to go. After her shift, she changed out of her uniform and walked to the garden behind the hotel. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Ethan was already there, standing near the fountain. He smiled when he saw her. "You came." "I almost didn't," she admitted. "I'm glad you did," he said. "I just wanted to thank you properly before I leave. My trip's ending tomorrow." Lena's heart sank a little. "You're leaving?" He nodded. "Back to the city. But before I go, I wanted to tell you something." She waited quietly. "You remind me of where I came from," he said softly. "My mother worked as a cleaner when I was a kid. She raised me alone. Seeing you here, how hard you work, how much you care, it made me remember her strength." Lena blinked back sudden tears. "That's really kind of you to say." He smiled faintly. "I meant every word. And I also wanted to tell you I don't see you as just a hotel worker, Lena. You're more than that." Her voice was small when she spoke. "Sometimes it's hard to believe that." "Then believe it now," he said gently. "You have talent, kindness, and courage. Don't let anyone make you feel less because of your job. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The sound of the fountain filled the silence. Finally, Lena said quietly, "Thank you, Ethan, for everything." "For seeing me," he smiled.
How could I not?
They talked for a while longer, sharing small stories and laughter. When it was time to leave, Ethan handed her a small card. "This has my number," he said. "If you ever need advice about work or even just want to talk, don't hesitate to call." "I mean that." Lena took it carefully, her fingers brushing his for a second. "I will. Thank you." He gave her one last smile before walking away, disappearing into the soft glow of the evening lights. That night, Lena sat on her bed, staring at the card in her hand. She didn't know what the future would bring, but she knew one thing for certain. Meeting Ethan had changed something inside her. For the first time in a long while, she didn't just dream of a better life. She believed she could build one. But the world has a way of testing belief, and soon, Lena would find herself facing a moment that would challenge everything. Her confidence, her heart, and the quiet connection that had grown between her and the man who saw her differently from everyone else. Lena didn't sleep much that night. She kept turning the small card in her hand, running her thumb over the name printed on it, Ethan Cole. It felt strange seeing it there, so official and distant, yet she had spoken to him like a friend, maybe even something more. She wasn't sure what to make of it. She didn't want to imagine anything beyond what it was, a kind gesture from a good man. But her heart refused to listen. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard his voice again, calm and sincere, telling her not to let anyone make her feel small. By morning, her aunt noticed her silence over breakfast. "You're thinking about that businessman again, aren't you?" she said with a smile that carried both amusement and concern. Lena tried to laugh it off. "No, Auntie. He's leaving today anyway." "It's nothing." Her aunt nodded slowly, studying her face. "Sometimes nothing can make a person's heart skip a beat," she said softly. Lena blushed but didn't reply. She just finished her tea, grabbed her bag, and left for the hotel. When she arrived, the lobby was busier than usual. There were guests checking out, staff running around with luggage, and the faint sound of rolling suitcases across the polished floor. She pushed her cleaning cart quietly through the side hall. For some reason, her chest felt heavy. She didn't expect to see Ethan again, but part of her hoped she might. As she cleaned the 10th floor, she noticed a folded piece of paper slipped under one of the room doors. It had her name written neatly across it. Her breath caught. She picked it up quickly and unfolded it. "Lena, I'm checking out this afternoon. If you have time, meet me in the lobby cafe before noon. If not, I understand. Either way, thank you for being genuine." Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words. She didn't know whether she should go or stay. What would people think if they saw her talking to a guest again? The last time had already caused whispers, but her heart whispered louder than her fear. By the time the clock struck 11, Lena had finished her assigned rooms and quietly made her way to the cafe. She changed out of her apron, fixed her hair, and walked slowly through the side corridor. Her palms were sweaty, her heart beat too fast. When she entered the cafe, she spotted him instantly. Ethan was sitting at a corner table typing something on his laptop. When he looked up and saw her, a warm smile spread across his face. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't," she admitted, sitting across from him, "but I wanted to say goodbye." "I'm glad you did," he said sincerely. "You deserve to know something before I go." She tilted her head slightly, curious. He closed his laptop and leaned forward. "I meant what I said before, Lena. You have something special: drive, kindness, and strength. I spoke to one of my friends who runs a small company near here. They're looking for an assistant with a business background. I gave them your name." Her eyes widened. "You did what?" He smiled faintly. "I know it's sudden, but I told him about your degree, your dedication, and your work ethic. He said he'd like to meet you for an interview." Lena sat frozen for a moment. She didn't know what to say. "Ethan, I don't know what to say. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," he said. "You helped your aunt without expecting anything in return. I respect that. You deserve a chance to move forward." Tears stung the corners of her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled. "Don't thank me yet. You still have to ace the interview." That made her laugh a little, wiping away a tear. "I'll try my best." "You'll do great," he said confidently. They talked for a little while longer. mostly about small things, her aunt's recovery, his travel plans, and the city weather. Every time he smiled, she felt that familiar warmth again, but she didn't dare imagine what it could mean. When the time came for him to leave, he stood and picked up his briefcase. "Take care of yourself, Lena. I'll be rooting for you." She stood too, smiling sadly. "Safe travels, Ethan." As he walked away, something inside her shifted. It wasn't sadness exactly. It was more like hope mixed with gratitude. For the first time, she felt seen for who she was. That evening, she told her aunt everything. Her aunt listened quietly, her eyes wide with pride. "Maybe this is your chance," she said. "Sometimes life surprises us in ways we never expect." Lena nodded, smiling softly. "Maybe it is." The next few days passed in a blur. She prepared for the interview as best she could, using the notes Ethan had shown her. She borrowed a simple blouse from her aunt and tied her hair neatly. When the day came, she was nervous but determined. The office was smaller than she expected, but bright and welcoming. The interviewer, a middle-aged woman named Ms. Patel, asked her questions about her studies, her work ethic, and her goals. At one point, Ms. Patel said, "Mr. Cole spoke highly of you. He said you were dependable and hardworking. We need people like that." Lena felt her cheeks warm. That's kind of him. By the time she left, she wasn't sure if she'd done well or not. But a few days later, she got a call. "Lena, this is Ms. Patel. Congratulations, you got the job. Can you start next week?" Lena nearly dropped her phone. Yes. Of course." Her aunt hugged her when she shared the news, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "I told you," her aunt said proudly. "Hard work never goes unnoticed." Lena smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Her first day at the new job was nerve-wracking but exciting. The office was busy but friendly, and her coworkers were kind. She worked hard, eager to prove herself. One afternoon, about a week later, she received a small package at her desk. There was no return name, only her address. When she opened it, she found a simple note inside. "I heard you got the job. I knew you would. Keep going, Lena. The world needs people like you." She smiled, holding the note close to her chest for a moment before slipping it into her bag. Weeks passed. She got used to her new routine, balancing long hours at work with helping her aunt at home. Life was steady, peaceful, and hopeful. Then one day, as she was walking home, she spotted a familiar figure standing near the bus stop. For a moment, she thought she was imagining things, but as the man turned, she saw his face clearly. It was Ethan. Her heart skipped. "Ethan?" she called softly. He looked up and smiled. "Lena, what a coincidence. What are you doing here?" "I had a meeting nearby," he said. "I was just waiting for a car." They stood there for a moment, the city noise fading around them. "How's the new job?" he asked. "Good," she said, smiling. "Better than I ever imagined. I still can't believe you helped make it happen." He shook his head. "You earned it, Lena. I just opened a door. You walked through it." They talked for a while, just like they used to in the garden. The same easy comfort was still there, though now it felt different, deeper, more meaningful. As the car arrived, Ethan turned to her. "I'll be back in town next month for another project. Maybe we can catch up again?" Lena hesitated only for a second. "I'd like that," he smiled. "Then it's a plan." As he got into the car, she waved, watching him drive away. She couldn't explain it, but she felt something quiet and certain, like maybe this wasn't just a coincidence. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Over the following weeks, they stayed in touch through short messages. Nothing romantic, just small check-ins. How was work? How was her aunt? How was his project going? But each message made her smile a little wider. When Ethan returned the next month, they met for coffee at a small cafe near her office. The conversation flowed easily, like it always had. But this time, they talked about dreams. His plans to expand his business, her goal to one day open a small community center to help young job seekers like herself. "You'll do it," he said confidently. "I can tell when someone's got the fire for it." Lena laughed softly. "You sound sure." "I am," he replied simply. As they talked, time slipped away unnoticed. When they finally stood to leave, Ethan said quietly, "You've changed since the first time I met you." "Have I?" she asked, smiling. "Yes," he said. "You stand taller now." Her smile softened. "Maybe because someone reminded me I was worth standing tall." He chuckled, looking down for a moment. "Then I'm glad I did something right." They said goodbye again, but this time neither of them felt the heaviness of parting. It felt like the story wasn't ending. It was just beginning a new chapter. That night, as Lena walked home under the streetlights, she thought about how strange life was. A few months ago, she'd been scrubbing floors, hiding behind her aunt's uniform. Now she was walking toward a future she had built herself, with a little help, a lot of hard work, and the courage to believe she was enough. And though she didn't know what tomorrow would bring, she knew one thing for sure. She would never forget the day she covered her aunt's shift at the hotel, because that single act of kindness had changed everything. Months passed like gentle waves, carrying Lena into a new rhythm of life. Her job at the small company had become more than just work. It was a doorway to growth. She had learned how to manage schedules, assist with meetings, and speak confidently in rooms full of people who once would have intimidated her. Every morning, as she walked to the office with her notebook tucked under her arm, she still thought about how everything had begun. One small decision to cover her aunt's shift had started a chain of moments that changed her life completely. Her aunt was doing better too. The long rest had helped, and though she still worked part-time, she spent most of her days gardening or baking. Sometimes in the evenings they would sit together on the balcony, sharing tea while watching the sunset. Her aunt often said, "See how the sun goes down but always comes back the next day? Life's the same. There's always another morning." Lena carried those words with her like a quiet strength. She still heard from Ethan now and then. His messages were short but kind. Sometimes he asked about her aunt. Other times he shared something funny that had happened during one of his business trips. Their talks were light, but there was always something deeper beneath them, a kind of connection that didn't need many words. One evening, a message came that made her heart race. "I'll be in town next week for a conference. Would you have time to meet?" She read it twice before replying. "Yes, just tell me when and where." The week moved slowly after that. She spent too long deciding what to wear, then laughed at herself for caring so much. "It's just coffee," she told herself. But her reflection in the mirror seemed to know better. When the day came, she met him at a small cafe by the park. The moment she saw him, her nervousness melted into something warm and familiar. "You look happy," he said, smiling as they sat down. "I am," she replied honestly. "Life's been kind lately." "I can see that," he said. "You've done well, Lena." She blushed slightly, stirring her coffee. "I had help along the way." He shook his head gently. "You had courage. That's what really counts." They talked for hours, the conversation flowing easily like always. He told her about his projects, the travel, the people he met. She shared stories from her office, the small victories, the challenges. At one point, he leaned back and said, "You know, that day I met you in the garden, I almost didn't stop to talk. I thought you might be too busy or not interested in conversation." She smiled. "And I almost told you I was a cleaner right away. I was afraid you'd walk away." He looked at her quietly for a moment. "I wouldn't have." The way he said it made her chest tighten a little. There was sincerity in his eyes, the kind that didn't need further explanation. As the sky turned golden outside, they decided to take a walk through the park. The air was cool, filled with the smell of fresh grass and distant music from a street performer. They didn't speak much, just walked side by side, comfortable in the silence. After a while, Ethan said softly, "Do you ever think about how strange life is? How one small choice can change everything?" Lena nodded. "All the time. If I hadn't covered my aunt's shift that day, I wouldn't be here right now." He smiled faintly. "And if I hadn't gone for coffee that morning, I wouldn't have met you." They walked a little further, their steps matching naturally. When they reached the edge of the park, he turned to her. "Lena, I don't want to lose touch again. I know we live in different worlds sometimes, different schedules, different goals, but I'd like to be part of yours if you'll let me." For a moment, she couldn't find her voice. The sincerity in his tone made her heart flutter. She smiled softly. "I'd like that too." After that evening, their connection deepened. They met more often, sometimes for lunch, sometimes just a walk. Their bond grew slowly, built on respect, understanding, and genuine care. There was no rush, no pressure, only a quiet certainty that they mattered to each other. One weekend, Ethan invited Lena and her aunt to an event his company hosted, a charity dinner to support education for underprivileged youth. Lena hesitated at first, worried she wouldn't fit in. But her aunt insisted she go. You belong anywhere kindness is needed, her aunt told her. At the event, surrounded by elegantly dressed guests, Lena felt a bit nervous, but Ethan stayed close, introducing her to people and making sure she was comfortable. What struck her most was how he spoke to everyone, from waiters to executives, with the same respect. Later that night, while standing on the terrace overlooking the city lights, Ethan said quietly, "I used to think success was about numbers, meetings, and deals. But lately I've realized it's about impact, how we make others feel. Meeting you reminded me of that." Lena looked out at the skyline, her heart full. "Sometimes the smallest acts create the biggest changes," she said softly. He nodded. "You proved that." Their friendship became the steady center of her life. Even when work was demanding or days were long, knowing someone believed in her made everything lighter. Over time, Lena began saving money. She had a quiet dream, to start a small program in her neighborhood to help young people find jobs and learn basic skills. She mentioned it to Ethan one afternoon. "That's a wonderful idea," he said, his eyes lighting up. "If you ever started, I'd love to help." True to his word, months later, when she finally rented a small community hall, Ethan helped her connect with a few people who donated old computers and books. Her aunt baked cookies for the first group of students who came. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Watching the young faces in that small room, Lena felt a deep, grateful ache in her heart. She had once been in their place, unsure, afraid, lost. And now she was giving them the hope someone had once given her. Ethan visited the center often, sometimes helping with donations, sometimes just sitting quietly while she taught. The children loved him too. They called him Mr. E. One evening after everyone left, Lena locked up the hall and turned to find Ethan waiting by the door. "You did it," he said with a proud smile. "You turned an idea into something real," she smiled. "I couldn't have done it alone." He shook his head. "You underestimate yourself again." There was a pause, a comfortable, quiet moment filled with unspoken feelings. Then Ethan said softly, "You know, when I met you, I thought I was helping you. But now I realize you've helped me more." She looked at him, her heart swelling. "How?" "You reminded me what matters," he said. "People, kindness, purpose." They stood there for a long time, the air around them still and calm. The city lights shimmered through the window, and somewhere in the distance a train horn sounded. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about everything. The chance meeting, the coffee, the awkward moments, the tears and the laughter. It all felt like a story written by life itself. The next morning, she found a small bouquet of white lilies on her doorstep, with a note tucked inside. Every story begins with a single step. "I'm glad mine began with you." Her aunt found her smiling at the note and said knowingly, "Some meetings aren't accidents. They're reminders that the world can still surprise us." Years later, when people at her center asked her how she had started it all, Lena always told the same story. She would laugh softly and say, "It began with a favor. I covered my aunt's shift one day, and that day changed everything." And every time she told it, she felt the same quiet wonder she had felt that morning in the hotel garden, when a kind stranger mistook her for someone else and somehow saw her for who she truly was. The story became more than a memory. It became a lesson she carried with her forever. That kindness has power, that honesty has beauty, and that even in the most ordinary days, life can offer something extraordinary. Life moved forward like the steady rhythm of a song, soft, familiar, and comforting. Months turned into years, and Lena's small community center slowly became something bigger than she had ever imagined. What began as a few borrowed tables and secondhand computers had grown into a space full of energy, laughter, and dreams. Children came in the mornings for study help. Teenagers came in the evenings to learn how to write resumes and prepare for interviews. Some just came for the warmth of the place, a corner where they felt seen and cared for. Every day when Lena unlocked the door, she still felt that quiet spark of wonder. It amazed her that one decision years ago could have led to all this. Her aunt often visited, bringing food or flowers. She would walk around the small classrooms proudly, greeting everyone. "My niece started this," she would say to anyone who'd listen. Lena always laughed, pretending to be embarrassed, but inside, her heart swelled with love. Ethan continued to visit whenever he was in town. Sometimes he donated books or helped with small repairs. Other times he simply sat in the back and listened to the students share their goals. Over time, the children began to look forward to his visits. They saw him as part of their story too. One afternoon, while the center was buzzing with activity, Lena looked up and saw Ethan standing quietly at the door. He was holding a small box and smiling that familiar calm smile. "You're early today," she said, walking over. "I finished my meetings early," he replied, "and I brought something for the center." He opened the box and revealed a small brass plaque. It read, "The Horizon Learning Center, founded by Lena and her community, for those who dare to dream." Lena stared at it, speechless. Her throat tightened. "It's beautiful," she finally whispered. "You built this," he said softly. "You should have your name on the wall." Together they mounted the plaque near the entrance. For a long moment they both stood silently looking at it. It wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a reminder of every long day, every sleepless night, every step that had brought them here. Afterward, they sat outside on the small bench under the mango tree, watching the children play. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the leaves, painting soft golden patterns on the ground. "Do you ever think about what's next?" Ethan asked after a while. "Sometimes," Lena said, "but I try not to rush it. I used to think I needed to know everything ahead of time. Now I just take things one day at a time." He smiled. "You sound wiser than me." She laughed lightly. "You're the one who helped me see things differently." He looked at her for a moment, then said quietly, "You helped me see differently too." There was something gentle and honest in his voice that made her heart flutter. But neither of them said more. They didn't need to. Over the next year, the center grew even more. With donations and local support, Lena was able to open a second branch in another neighborhood. It wasn't big, but it was filled with the same warmth and purpose. She trained new volunteers, helped them understand the importance of patience, and reminded them that kindness was as powerful as any skill. One evening, as she was leaving the center, she saw Ethan waiting by his car. He looked tired but happy. "I just came from a meeting," he said. "I told my team about your center. They're interested in helping with a long-term partnership, training programs, internships, maybe even scholarships." Lena's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" He nodded completely. "You've built something special, Lena. It deserves to grow." She couldn't hold back the tears this time. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled gently. "You've thanked me enough. It's my turn to say thank you for reminding me what matters most." They stood there for a while, the evening breeze brushing softly against their faces. It wasn't a grand moment with dramatic music or bright lights. It was simple, real, and full of meaning. In the months that followed, the partnership took shape. The centers began offering workshops, job placements, and mentorship programs. More young people found opportunities to build their futures. Lena's days became busier, but she loved every moment. Through it all, Ethan remained close. Sometimes they worked together late into the night, discussing ideas over tea. Sometimes they simply sat in silence, both lost in thought, content to share the quiet. One rainy evening, they were sitting inside the center, listening to the soft patter of rain on the roof. The lights were dim and most of the staff had gone home. Lena was reviewing reports while Ethan watched the rain through the window. After a long pause, he said softly, "It's strange. I've built companies, handled projects worth millions, but none of them ever made me feel as proud as seeing these kids learn something new." Lena looked at him and smiled. "Maybe because this is real. It changes lives." He turned toward her, including mine. She felt her breath catch for a moment. The room seemed quieter, the sound of rain softer. She didn't know what to say, so she simply smiled, and in that smile was everything neither of them needed to speak aloud. From that night on, their bond deepened in quiet, beautiful ways. There were no grand confessions, no dramatic moments, just small acts of care that spoke louder than words. A shared meal, a thoughtful note, a look that said, "I understand." One afternoon, a journalist visited the center to write an article about its success. She asked Lena what inspired her to start it. Lena smiled and told her story, how she had once covered her aunt's cleaning shift, how she met a kind stranger who believed in her, and how one small act of kindness grew into something much bigger. The article was published a week later. It spread quickly, reaching more people than Lena ever expected. Messages poured in, Letters from readers who felt inspired, people who wanted to help, and even those who shared their own stories of hope. Lena read every message, often moved to tears. It reminded her that the world was full of goodness waiting to be noticed. One evening, she received a message from an unknown number. It read, "I saw your story. I'm a single mother working as a cleaner. I didn't think people like us could ever change our lives. But after reading about you, I want to try. Thank you for showing me it's possible." Lena pressed her phone to her chest and closed her eyes. That message meant more to her than any award or recognition ever could. The next morning, when she arrived at the center, she found Ethan already there, helping the volunteers set up. He looked up as she walked in and smiled. "You're famous now," he teased. She laughed. "I'm not. The story just reminded people that small things matter." He nodded. "That's what makes it powerful.